Hi everyone, it's Dina and I'm back today with a bracelet tutorial. Today's tutorial is going to be using contents from the Hot and Trendy Beads of the Month Club from Adorable Elements. It's called Peaceful Meadow is the one that I received this month, which is March of 2025. So we're going to be using 3 of those components from the box, and then we have a couple of extra things. So these are the components that we'll need for the box. We'll need some tri-beads. In this color, in this box is the peridot capri gold. Then we're going to need our disc beads. This color is transparent light gray AB. Then we're going to need our octo beads, and this color is the chalk beige luster. The other extra things that we're going to need some seed beads. I have 11-ohs and 15-ohs here. The 11-ohs, both of them are Miyuki, but the 11-ohs is the Duracoat Galvanized Matte Yellow Gold color. Have it written down over here in front of me, make sure I said it right. It is Miyuki's number 4203F, if you're interested in the number. And then the 15 color, get to my other screen, is called Metallic Forest Green Iris. That number for Miyuki is number 453. So if you have those colors and you get the box with me on a monthly basis, which you can do if you have not signed up just yet, you can sign up with my discount code DINA10, DENA10, and you'll start receiving the same beads that I get on a monthly basis, so you can follow along with me. So if you have these beads at home, great! If not, you can purchase this from Adorable Elements and start getting your boxes soon. The only other extra thing that we're going to need, component-wise, is a clasp of choice, and I'm just using a magnetic clasp that I have. It opens up in that fashion. I love magnetic clasps for bracelets. I feel like those work the best. And then I have some jump rings to attach at the end. Other items, you're obviously going to need some thread and needle. So I have a Pony Style brand needle. I have size 11 on there today. I have Wildfire 0.006. This is the beige color. I have just a wingspan of that, so about 5.5 feet-ish of thread. You'll need a thread burner to cut off all your thread from the spool, as well as after you tie it off. You'll need some pliers if you choose to do some jump rings with your clasp. If you don't need that, if you don't do that type of a clasp and you don't use jump rings, you don't need the pliers more than likely. And I feel like there's something else I'm missing, but if I am, then I'll let you know down in the description down below. So go ahead and gather up. I'm going to kind of clear off my bead mat just a little bit so the camera can focus more on what I'm doing, and I will come back and I'll show you that first step. Alright, so I have just the first set of beads that we're going to need on this first step out. So we're going to need the disc beads, our octo beads, and at the moment we just need 2 11-ohs. And that's all you need out at the moment. I also have my sample sitting out here. The reason why we're going to only start off with these guys right here is that I wanted to make sure that I had plenty of the disc beads to go around. And with that being the case, I'm wanting to start off with doing this center row right here first. But then I also wanted to make sure that I had enough disc beads to go around the edge, as you can see on my sample. So in order to do that, I had to divide this up into 3 different sections. Now you get 30 of these disc beads in the box if you get the single box. If you get the double box, you'll be getting 60 of those beads. So if you get 60 of these, then you may not have to actually get or do this extra little embellishment down on the ends of the bracelet that we're going to end up doing, because you'll have enough to be able to do the whole bracelet in just this one fashion. But since I only get just the single beads of the single version of the beads of the month, then I have 30 of these. So divided it up into 3, obviously would be 10 on each little section. We're going to do 1 of the disc beads in between each of the octos, and then we're going to have 1 on either side of each of the octos. So in order to do that, we can only use 10 of our octos. So I have 10 octos sitting out right here, and then I've got the remaining of my disc beads after I take them all out of here again, once we get to that spot. So let's start with that first step. So what we wanted to do is create ourselves a stop bead. So pick up one of your 11-ohs, pull it down to the end of the thread, leave yourself a comfortable length to be able to hold on to, and then just go back through that bead one more time. We're going to use this stop bead also in our design, so you don't want to go through that bead too many times. So now we have that on there. Now this next step is pretty simple. We're going to pick up an octo bead. If you're not familiar with an octo bead, it has 3 holes. I'm going through one of the outer holes right now. There's a hole on the opposite side over here, and then there's also a hole down the center. So you want to make sure that first of all of your holes are open, because we're just going through that center hole at the first time, this first round. So you can do it in a couple of different ways. You can do what I just did, where you take your needle and poke it through all 3 holes. You can pick it up, you can look at it, because you can see that there's all 3 holes are open that way. Whichever way is comfortable for you. Just make sure that you have all 3 holes open, because I hate for you to get through this first step and we get to the outer portion on the second step and you have to start all over again because you don't even have a hole that's sitting there. So definitely make sure that you have all 3 holes open first before you start. Then we're going to just simply string on. You string on an octo bead, pick up a disc bead. String on your next octo bead, checking all your holes in whatever fashion that you like, and string on a disc bead. So that's all you do. And like I said, I'm going to be using 10 of my octo beads, so I will end up starting off with just 9 of our disc beads. So we're going to start with an octo, end with an octo. So get those beads on, come back, and I will show you that next step. Okay, so we've got all of our 10 octo beads with 9 of our disc beads in between strung on. So now we're going to mimic what we did on the first side with our stop bead. We're just going to pick up one 11-oh, so that was the second 11-oh that I had out earlier. And then we're going to put that onto our product, and then we're just going to go straight back down that center row. On bracelets, especially when I'm using thread and needle, does not matter the size of the thread. I typically put 2 strands of thread just about through every bead that I do. And that is only for security reasons. I do sell my products, so just keep that in mind. You can always check out my Etsy site as well. Give a little shout out to that. But I do sell my products, and I don't want to have a product that only has just 1 strand of thread through it, and somebody just accidentally brush up against something or get their bracelet or necklace or, you know, whatever the case it is, get it caught on something at work or, you know, just out and about somewhere, and then have problems with it breaking and everything. Just, you know, that extra strand of thread, that was easy for me to say, will help out with the stability of everything. So now that you have your stop bead on either side, got one there, and then that's our stop bead on this side. Now we need to get set up to where we start doing the embellishments around the edge. So this, we're coming out of that center hole right here, right next to our original stop bead. We're just going to jump out to whichever hole that you want. I'm going to the right just because I'm right-handed. If you're left-handed, you can go ahead and do the same thing on the left side, because we're going to come back down on the other side and do the same thing anyway. So to start off, we're just going to jump straight over to here. Once we get done with the side of this bracelet, I keep catching on to stuff. Sorry, getting off the screen because I'm catching off on the things. But once we get done with this side of the bracelet, then at the top up here, we'll start covering up some of the outer edges and everything. So this thread line that you see right here is going to get covered up at the very end. So now you're coming out of that outer hole, going inwards towards your bracelet. We want to pick up this round of beads. We're going to pick up a 15, a triangle bead. Now this triangle bead is a peridot green on one side, and then you've got the capri gold on the other side. I'm not going to care which side I'm going to pick it up on. If that bothers you, if you want it to look more symmetrical, then pick it up whichever way that you want. But I'm not going to worry about that too much. So I have a 15 and then the triangle bead. And then I'm going to pick up an 11, another triangle. Then I'm going to pick up a disc bead. So that's what I have on there now. I have the 15. There we go, focus. I have a 15 triangle, 11 triangle, and then the disc bead. And then I'm going to go backwards. So I'm going to add the triangle, the 11, the triangle, and the 15 afterwards now. So here's the triangle, 11, triangle, and then the 15. So this first one that we do is going to start off like this. Oh, and that's a delivery truck bark. So somebody's in the area delivering something. So what we're going to do is going to wrap around and go through the same hole that we're going and in the same direction. So when you do that, that will put your beads off to the side. Goodness gracious, puppy. I say puppy, he's 11 years old. But anyways, we're going to continue through that 15. And when we do that, that will help kind of lock these beads into place to where it's all a little bit more tight and they won't move around as easily. So once I get this all situated, because I kind of pulled on my thread a little bit there. There we go. Just kind of massage it down a little bit until you're coming out of that 15. So now we want to get to this next octo bead. So we're already coming out of 15. We're going to add a second 15. Then we're going to add one 11-0 and then two 15s. So we're adding one 15, 11, and then two more 15s. You're coming out of that first 15 here. We're just going to go straight through that outer hole of the next octo in line. That should allow your 11-0 to line up and sit right next to the disc bead sitting here. But then it also helps to cover up the thread from going from one hole to the next. So now this next section is going to be very similar to the first one, except we're going to take off that last 15-0 that we added. So here's your rotation again. So it's a 15, a triangle, 11, a triangle, a disc, then go backwards. A triangle, an 11-0, a triangle, but we're going to skip that last 15 because we're going to share that last 15 that we added in the combination to get from one bead to the next. So just go back through that last 15 and go ahead and go through the octo hole as well. And then when you pull this down, still getting caught on things, goodness, then it looks like that. So now you have the same type of look on either side. Then you continue back through that last 15 again, and when you tug on that a little bit, then you have two sets of it done. So go ahead and do the same thing. Go add your extra beads in between your octos and then the embellishment along the sides of it all the way down to the other end, and then meet me back and I'll show you how to get from one side to the other so that way we can continue all the way back down this side and doing the same thing. Meet you back in a second. Alright, so we have our first side complete. So that's what it should look like, something similar to this. Now again, if you're doing the same thing that I am, I only have the 10 octo beads, so we've got 10 on the side right here. But if you have the double beads of the month, then you might already have 20, 25, however many that you need to do your bracelet. So we just have the 10. So now we need to get from this section, there we go, give it time to focus. We're getting from this section, we're just coming out of the octo bead right now, but we need to get to the other side. So to get to the other side, just continue through the 15-0 that we have been doing. So go through that 15, and then we will add, pretty sure it was two of our 15s and then one of our 11s. Let me measure real quick. I believe that's what it was. So we got two 15s and one of the 11s. We're going to go through the 11 that's already sitting there. So it'll look something similar to that. Hopefully I was in frame for that. I'll make sure I'm on frame for this one. So, because this will be the same thing on the opposite side. So we're picking up one 11, and then on this one is three 15s. The only difference on that first part is that we already had that first 15. So we're just mimicking the same thing on the other side. So I have one 11 and three 15s. Then we're going to go through the other hole of that octo bead that we're working on. Now I'm flipping it in my hands. Like I said, I'm right-handed, or I bead right-handed mostly. So I have it all sitting in my right hand. And then there's that. Come on, focus, guy. There we go. So we've got our three 15s, our three 11s, and our three 15s. Now you're set up to do the same thing on the opposite side. When you get down to here, you want to do the same thing that you did on this side. So if you need to, you can always rewind. I have everything on listed down below in the description on the different chapters and everything, so that way if you need to go back in a chapter, you can look down there and see which chapter it's supposed to be in, as to which step to come back and look to see if you need to get a refresher on how to do the side beads or a refresher on how to do the ending beads right here. So go ahead and complete all the way down to the other side and do your other ending. And like I said in the very, I think, first step clip, so one or two clips ago, how I had said that I put 2 strands of thread through each of my beads. We only have 1 strand of thread through all of these beads right now on the sides. So go ahead and complete the second side, do your second ending over here, go back all through all of your threads, all of your beads one more time to give it a second strand, if that's what you prefer. You don't have to, that is an option, but that's usually what I do. So that's what I'm going to continue to do, and then I'll meet you back and I will show you that next step on how to try to get this thing finished. Alright, so I wanted to come back and show you the other end because it is just slightly different, just in case there is a little bit of a confusion. So I am coming out of the end of the octo bead, so I've already gotten both sides done. Looking pretty nifty so far. But I'm coming out of the octo bead. I'm going to go through that first 15 that's sitting there again, just like we have been doing. So very similar to what we did on the other end. Now the only difference is that we already have a 15 on the other side. So here we're going to add 2 15s. We're going to add one of our 11s. So that way we have 3 15s. And we have 2 11s when we go through our stop bead again. Just like that. And there is a wrap of thread around that stop bead. If that bothers you, you can take that thread out now because you just went through that stop bead, so now you can take this out if that's something that bothers you. So just take your needle and get up underneath the thread. Try not to pierce the thread because you're going to come back and you're going to use this thread to tie off at the end anyway. And then just make sure you tug on it a little bit to kind of keep your tension down the center of your bracelet. So tug on it just a little bit, and then when you do that, it's sitting just like that now. So now let's add the other half. So it's going to be 1 11 and then just 2 15s this time because we already have the third 15 sitting there. So we were coming up and out of these 15s, so we need to go down and in to this 15 just like this. And I'm just going to go ahead and go straight through the octo bead at the same time. So I'm going through that first 15 to add the rest of these guys on there, and I'm coming out of that same hole on this side of the octo bead. And now I'm set up to where once you get all these beads down, I can continue around and add a second strand of thread through the outer edges again. Now, a lot of you are probably asking, why didn't we do this on the first round, on the first go around? Mainly because I wanted to teach the stitch first, and then now I'm leaving it up to you as to if you want to add that extra strand of thread through here or not. So if you do, go ahead and do that. If not, that's perfectly fine too. Just continue on to the next step, and I will show you how to do the embellishments over here on either end, so that way we can get a complete sized bracelet. If you're doing all of your octo beads and none of the extra little sections over here to get the size bracelet that you need, then go ahead and skip forward to adding your clasp, and then you'll be almost done with your bracelet. So if not, just choose which way you want to do. And then at the end, if you're doing this along with me, we're going to add the extra little sections. After you get done with going through your beads again, if you choose to do that, go ahead and tie off, because you're going to end up down here at the end. And then once you get your thread and needle back over to this side right here, just tie yourself a simple little knot with your starter thread. And then burn it off, and we'll be done with that part. So we're going to have just one little complete little section right here. So go ahead and complete all of that. Meet me back, and I will show you the little extenders. Alright, so I'm running into a problem, so I wanted to come back and show you just in case you run into the same problem. I am actually coming out of that first little section right now, and I'm running into a problem with that first 11 or 15-0 that's sitting there. I've already gone through this outer edge one more time, so I'm trying to go through that 15-0 that we've already gone through a couple of times, and it's not working. It's not going through. So what do you do now? Just skip it. Don't even worry about it. Just skip over it. You're going to have some thread sitting there, but once I get through these beads in just a second, you're not even going to see it. So let me get through these other 4 beads and make sure that I don't run into that problem again with that 15-0, because sometimes the 15s are a little bit smaller. If it's not going, then just skip the bead and just continue on. Just make sure that the side that you're skipping your beads on is going to be your underside. So now there is a I don't know if you're going to be able to see it or not. You can kind of see it there. It's kind of shiny with all the bead shininess and stuff, but there's a little small thread of piece of thread sitting right there that's going from the octo bead to the next 15-0. So that's all you need to do, is just kind of skip that bead. So some of these little 15s, depending on the coating that you're using and everything, sometimes there's extra coating that gets stuck inside of the hole of the 15, so it might make it a little bit smaller. You can also change your needle to a size 12 needle to make your needle smaller. That would be another option you can do as well. Or you can just skip doing this whole little extra 2 strands of thread through this whole thing if it's making you that frustrated and everything. Because sometimes I do get frustrated whenever I can't go through the beads multiple times and I want to do what I want to do. So just go ahead and continue that. Wanted to come back and show you that just in case you run into that same problem. I'll meet you back in a second. Alright, so now we're finished with the main part of our bracelet. And this is what it should look like, something similar to this. So now we're going to do the extra little extenders on either side, so that way we can make our bracelet just a little bit longer if you're doing the same size as me. And this is going to be what we're going to end up doing, is something similar to this. This was attached to my other part of my sample, but I had to take it apart so I can use the rest of my disc beads in there. So this is the parts that we're going to end up doing. So it's basically just another right angle weave section using multiple beads, and then we're going to come back before we move on to the next box. We're going to do one box, then we're going to do the center portion of the box, and then we'll move on to the next box, and so on and so forth. So I will show you how to do this part. So I have a new piece of thread on length on my thread or on my needle. I'm going to go ahead and add another stop bead to it. I'm not going to reuse this stop bead this time. So I'm just going to pick up one of the beads off my mat. You can even use a different colored bead if you wanted to, so that way you know which one that you're going to be taking off your project at the end. But I'm leaving, actually I want to leave a little bit more than that. You want to leave a little bit, I'd say probably about 3 or 4 inches or so of length on this end to hold on to, and that's so at the very end you can attach your needle to this part of the thread and then weave it back in and tie it off and everything. So got another stop bead on there, and what we'll start doing first is we're going to end up going through these 3 11-ohs, and then that's going to be one side of our box, our right angle weave box. So we have the 3 11-ohs here, then we're going to add some for the top, for the right side, and for the left side. And we're going to add the corner beads as well. So we're going to add 3 for the top. Well, let me explain it this way. We've already got 3 for the left. In fact, we can just go ahead and go through it. I'm trying to see how to say this in an easy way for those that may not understand right angle weave. So let's go ahead and just do that. We'll just start going through our 3 11-ohs first. That might be just the easiest thing to do. And so our stop bead is hanging out there, but I'm going to have it hang out just a little bit off to the side, so that way you can tell, okay, we're just going through those first 3 beads. Now we need to add a corner bead plus the top, so that's 4 more beads. So we have 1 corner bead plus the top. Then we'll need another corner bead for the right hand side here and the right hand side, so that's 4 more beads. And these are all 11-ohs that I'm using at the moment. Then we're going to need another corner bead down here and the bottom part, so 4 more. And then now all we have to add is just a corner bead in between the bottom and the left hand side, so just 1 more. So we have a total of 4, 8, 12, 13 11-ohs on our needle. So we're going to let those all fall down. And to complete our right angle weave unit, we're going to go straight through these 3 beads one more time, just like that. And then when you pull all these down together, without wrapping around your mouse that's sitting off to the side, I'm wrapping around a lot of stuff today, sorry. And then you'll have something that looks kind of like a circle. So now we're going to make it look more like a square. To do that, we're going to skip over that first bead because that's going to be our first corner bead. Oh, yep. That would be my family and the mail lady. So barking number 2 for the video. Okay, so we're going to skip over this first bead, which is going to be our first corner bead. Then we're going to proceed through the next 3. And if you're not familiar about how to do a bead and make it look like it's a picot stitch or one that's sticking outwards, then I'll show you a little tip here. So go through that, skip through that first bead, go through the next 3, pull your thread down close to the product, where your loop is down close to the product, hopefully not wrap around everything. Pull your thread down close to the product, put your needle back through the bead that you want it to poke out with, and then you want to pull tight. And when you do that, that allows your bead to stick out in more of a point. Then we're going to do, so now you have your top side done. So now we're going to do the right side. So we're skipping over the next bead. We're going to proceed through the next 3 after that bead. So pull your thread all the way down to the end down here and put your needle back through the bead that you want it to stick out, and then pull down on the thread. Honey, you can go ahead and close my door. And then, yeah, I'm recording right now. And then skip your next bead and then go through the next 3 that are sitting there. And then you're going to go down close to the product, put your needle through, just have it sit right there, and then pull down, and then take your needle out. And then this last corner, yet again, we're going to go through these first 3 beads. Now it's getting kind of tight in there, so just wiggle your thread through and your needle. It should fit, but sometimes it gets a little tight depending on what type of coating and things that you have. And then get your thread down to close to your product. Put your needle through that bead that you want to stick out, and then pull down on the working thread. And now you have a right angle box with 4 little corners to it. So now we're going to get to that embellishment part. So we're coming out of that third bead in that left hand side. We're going to go to this corner bead over here on the right. So you can continue through the corner if you want. You can skip it if you want. Either way is fine. I'm just going to go ahead and continue through it just because it's sitting there. It's easy for me to get to it at this moment. Then we're going to go through the corner bead. And then we're going to add our embellishment. Embellishment is going to be a 15 and 11, a triangle bead, an 11, and a 15. So we've got, there we go, focus. It is 15, 11, triangle, 11, 15. We're coming out of the right hand side of that corner bead. We're going to go to the opposite side down here, the opposite corner bead. Go in from the right to the left of that bead. And then when you pull that in, just make sure that your beads stay to the top, because sometimes they'll want to try to flip to the bottom of the product. It'll sit something similar to that. Then we're going to go right back through those 5 beads that we just added. And when you pull that down, it'll sit like that. So now your thread's back up here at the top. So now we're going to go back through that corner bead that was up here from left to right. That way we can get set up for our next box. So our next box is going to be added in the same fashion. We're just going, instead of going from this direction in a clockwise direction, we're now going to be going in a counterclockwise direction. So it's the same type of thing. The only thing different is going to be the part where you come to actually add on your embellishment. So I'll let you continue this next little box. Just do the exact product that we did here. Add your 13 beads, skip your corner beads, come back, and then I'll show you how to get set up to do that middle embellishment there. Alright, so now that you have your next right angle weave unit sitting there, we're coming out of that bottom of the left hand side of the 3 beads down here. And this is where you want to make the decision. Do you want all of your embellishments to go in the same fashion, so going from this diagonal way, or do you want it to go the opposite diagonal way? It's completely up to you on what you want to do. If you want to continue doing it the same way like this, then you would just go straight through this bead right here, which is your corner bead down there, and then add your embellishments and connect to the bead up in here. If you want it to go the opposite direction, which is perfectly fine too, then you would continue through until you get through this bead, this corner bead, so the rightmost bottom corner bead, and then you'll want to connect to the left topmost corner bead. So it's completely up to you as to what you want to do. And then I'm going to have mine go in the same direction on this bracelet. So I'm going through that corner bead on the bottom left hand side. Then I'm going to add my extra beads. So it's a 15, 11, triangle, 11, and a 15. And I'm going to go to that topmost right corner bead, and I'm going to go from the right to the left side this time. And then I'm going to circle through the 5 beads that we just added to get myself back down to the bottom. And then go through that corner bead again that we started off going through, going from the left to the right. And then when you do that, that sits all your beads in the center right there. And that alone would be a nice little bracelet that you can make as a companion bracelet to this one. Just do a bunch of these. So to get yourself set up to do the next raw unit, you need to continue through the 3 bottom beads, the corner bead if you wish, or you can skip it. whichever one's easier for your thread and needle to go through. And then continue through the 3 beads on the right hand side. And then that gets you set up for your next raw unit. Oh, and I'm trying not to pierce the thread. There we go. So now that gets you set up for your next raw unit. Now I'm going to do 4 of these on this side, and then I'm going to measure it and see if that's going to be the right length for me. When I come back to the next clip, I'll let you know if 4 of them is what I'm going to end up using, or if I'm going to end up using a 5th one, but I'm almost pretty sure 4 is going to work for me. So I'm going to finish off 4 of them, I'm going to measure it, and I'll come back, and then I'll show you how to do the ending portion of it so we have something for our clasp to attach to. So give us just a moment and I'll be right back. Okie dokie, so I did do just the 4 raw units on the side, and I think that's going to end up being just about right, because once we add our clasp and everything at the end, and we got to do the other side over here, it's going to end up being somewhere around a 7.5 inch bracelet. So you can use that as your guide. If you need your bracelets to be a little bit longer than that, then add an extra one on either side. Do 5 instead of 4. If you need your bracelets to be just slightly a little bit more, then you can add some ladder stitch over here off to the end and just add 1 or 2 rows of ladder stitch. Just play around with it and see how it looks for you. If you have a bracelet mandrel, you can measure it in that way. I just use a measuring tape because that's the only thing I have at the moment. I will eventually get myself a bracelet mandrel, make it a little bit easier to measure my bracelets a little bit better. So I'm going to go ahead and call this what I'm going to end up using. And to finish it off, we need to have a spot over here off to the side to where our jump rings can attach to, so that way our jump ring can attach to the bracelet plus the clasp. So to do that, I'm coming out of this corner bead down here in the bottom right hand side. Get that a little bit closer, it seems like it's really far away. So I'm coming out of this little corner bead down here. I'm going to get myself to go back through these 3 seed beads up here at the top, or at least that's the way I have it sitting. It's the ones that are on the right hand side. So I'm basically getting myself set up to where I would do another raw unit, but I'm not going to do a raw unit. I'm just going to add a couple of beads in a loop. So moving myself through those 3 seed beads. And then try not to hit the thread there on the side. And try not to get caught onto everything. Apparently it's the day to get caught onto a bunch of stuff. So now we're going to add our little loop. Loop is pretty simple. It's 5 beads. So we're going to add 1, 15, 3, actually I'm going to do 4, I think. And then, did I do 4 or 3? Let's do 3. Let's see what happens. I don't remember how many I did because I took it apart already. So 115, 3 11s, and 115. And then we're just going to, actually no, it does need the 4 because it needs some room. So 115, 4 11s, and 115. Then we're going to circle through those 3 11s here at the end of the bracelet again. And then that should give just a little bit of room. Oh my, come on, there we go. Didn't want to go through that bead again. That should give just a little bit of room there at the end so your jump ring can sit through that. Now I would suggest to go through these last 6 beads that we just added, this little loop, at least 1 more time, if not 2 more times. Treat this as if it were a loop for a button. And on loops on buttons, you always want to go through the loop at least 1 more time. If you can, try to go through it at a 3rd, if even a 4th time. This is going to be the part of the bracelet that's going to get the most wear and tear. So the more strands of thread that you can get through it, the better off you're going to be. And then after you get through this loop of seed beads, at least 3 times, depending on how much you're comfortable with leaving it at. Then all you have to do after that is just tie off your thread and then burn off this side. So I will do the tying off here off camera, but I will tie off my thread here, and then I'll put my needle onto the starter thread again down here, and I'll do the same thing on that end. Then we're going to do the same product over here, or the same steps over here on this end. So I'm going to add the 4 raw units and then our little loop. And then once that's done, I'll come back and I'll show you how to attach the clasp. Alright everyone, we are almost done. So I've got my 4 ends, or 4 raw units on either side, plus our little loops, so we have our attachment for our jump rings. And the way that it's sitting right now, with it being flat, it is just below 7 inches. It's about 6 inches and 3/4, 6 3/4 inches. There we go. I can get it flat so you can see it. So it's sitting right around in there. Now the one thing that you have to be careful with when you're measuring your bracelets flat is that you have to think about the thickness of the beads that you're using. Now these rondelle shaped disc beads are what is going to create more of a depth than the flat octo beads are, because the octo beads are going to sit flat obviously on your wrist, but these rounded ones kind of poke out a little bit more. So I'll give you kind of a look at what it looks like so far, and then if I flip it around, my cat's screaming at me because I have the door closed again. If I flip it around, you can see that's how much room that I have left over before they touch on my wrist. But I wear kind of a smaller-ish bracelet. I wear about a 7 1/4 bracelet is where I feel like that's comfortable for me. So like I said, this is probably going to be closer to about a 7 1/2 inch bracelet, but let's get it finished. We're going to pick up one of our jump rings. Actually, I'll pick up the first one because it's not quite open yet. So we're going to open up our jump rings. It's slightly open with the ones that I have. These are just jump rings that I have out of my stash. We're going to continue to open it, so I have pliers on either side, and then we're going to twist open just like that to make it more open. Then we're going to attach one of the openings to our bracelet. We're going to pick up our clasp, and this clasp does have a right side and a wrong side. So that's the flat and the bottom side of the clasp, and then that's the top side. So you want to make sure that you're adding your clasp in the correct direction to where it will look right on your bracelet. And then you put your pliers back on either end of your jump ring, and then you twist it back closed. Now this jump ring has a little bit of an opening, so I'm just continuing to twist close and kind of push it together a little bit. Like I said, these are jump rings that I have that I just found that were oval, kind of deep in my stash, so one of those things I'm trying to get rid of, things that I don't use very often. And then this jump ring, I had tried it already earlier to make sure that everything looked right and fit. So this one actually is not quite completely open. And there she goes knocking on the door again. And then we'll attach this side in the same fashion. And maybe. Of course I'm going to have difficulties with one of them. I'm leaving the clasp on the bracelet, so I make sure that I have the clasp sitting in the correct direction on both sides. That's just how I prefer to do it. You can always just take your clasp apart if you would wish, if that's easier for you, but you don't have to. I like to keep it together so that way I know for sure I have the clasp going on the right way and I'm not twisting the bracelet in any way. I'm just making sure that this jump ring is closed pretty good. And then after that, we have a completed bracelet. And then that's what your clasp looks like. Alright, so now we have a completed bracelet. So here's the front side, and then there is the back with the clasp. So thank you very much for watching. I appreciate it. so don't forget to hit that like button as well as the subscribe button. Also leave a comment. I love to read your comments and I will respond back to them as soon as I can. Thanks again, guys. I appreciate it, and don't forget to use that coupon code DINA10 if you would like to get the same type of beads that I do from Adornable Elements on a monthly basis with the Beads of the Month Club. Thanks again, guys. I will see you in the next one. Bye.